My name is Jason Mitchell. I'm 32, and 6 months ago, my fiancée Rebecca broke my heart. The pain was unbearable, but nothing compared to discovering she left me for my younger sister Melissa. Yesterday, I received their wedding invitation in the mail with a handwritten note. Hope you can be happy for us. Some wounds cut deeper than others, especially when inflicted by family. Before I tell you how I turned this wedding disaster into my greatest victory, drop a like and subscribe if you've ever had family betray you. Trust me, what happens next will change how you handle betrayal forever. Growing up with Melissa was like living in a constant competition. From the beginning, our relationship was defined by rivalry rather than siblinghood. She was 4 years younger, but what she lacked in age, she made up for in determination to outshine me in everything. When I won a science fair in 5th grade, she spent the entire next year preparing for hers. When I made varsity baseball, she suddenly became passionate about softball. The pattern continued into our adult lives, becoming less obvious, but more insidious. Our parents weren't malicious people, but they unknowingly fueled this competition. Why can't you get grades like Jason? They'd ask Melissa. Then later, Melissa's so outgoing, Jason, you should try to be more social. Every comparison was another brick in the wall between us. By high school, we barely spoke unless necessary. After college, I moved to Boston to pursue my career in software engineering. Melissa stayed closer to home, working in marketing in Providence. The distance helped our relationship. When we saw each other at holidays, we could maintain a polite facade that kept our parents happy. I thought we'd outgrown the worst of our rivalry. I was wrong. I met Rebecca 3 years ago at a charity gala my company sponsored. She was handling the event planning, and I was impressed by how effortlessly she commanded the room. Rebecca had this magnetic presence, tall with auburn hair, intelligent green eyes, and a laugh that made everyone around her smile. When she approached me about a donation, our conversation flowed so naturally that I found myself asking for her number before the night ended. Our relationship progressed quickly. Rebecca was everything I thought I wanted: ambitious, intelligent, and seemingly kind. She worked as an event coordinator for high-profile clients, which meant she understood my unpredictable work schedule and shared my drive. Within a year, I proposed during a weekend trip to Cape Cod. The diamond ring cost 3 months' salary, but her tearful yes made it seem worth every penny. The first time Rebecca met my family was Thanksgiving after we started dating. My parents adored her immediately. Melissa's reaction was harder to read. She seemed politely interested, asking Rebecca numerous questions about her work and life. By the end of the weekend, they were exchanging phone numbers and making plans to meet for lunch. I was surprised but pleased, thinking perhaps Melissa had finally matured beyond our childhood rivalry. Over the following months, Rebecca and Melissa grew surprisingly close. They began meeting regularly without me, going shopping or having lunch whenever Melissa visited Boston. Rebecca would return from these outings energized, talking about how much fun my sister was and how alike they were. I was happy they got along, but sometimes felt strangely excluded. Still, I dismissed my unease as petty jealousy, even when Rebecca began texting Melissa daily. The engagement party was at my parents' house, and I noticed Melissa watching Rebecca all evening with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. When I mentioned it later, Rebecca laughed it off. She's just excited to have a sister. You're overthinking it. Looking back, the signs were everywhere. Rebecca became increasingly critical of me, my work hours, my friends, even how I dressed. Meanwhile, Melissa was perfect in her eyes. Melissa gets it, she'd say during arguments. Melissa understands work-life balance. The comparisons felt eerily familiar. 6 months before our wedding date, I came home early from a business trip, hoping to surprise Rebecca. Instead, I was the one surprised. I found them in our living room, Melissa holding Rebecca's hands, sitting too close, whispering something that made Rebecca laugh intimately. When they noticed me, they jumped apart with guilty expressions that confirmed my worst suspicions. The room temperature seemed to drop 20 degrees as we all stared at each other. "It's not what you think," Rebecca said immediately, the most cliched line in the history of betrayal. What exactly do I think? I asked, my voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside me. You're always so dramatic. Melissa rolled her eyes, but her face was flushed. We were just talking about wedding plans. The confrontation that followed was ugly. Both of them gaslight me, making me feel crazy for questioning their relationship. Rebecca accused me of being possessive and paranoid. Melissa called me self-centered for making everything about me. I left my own apartment to clear my head, and when I returned hours later, Rebecca was packing a suitcase. I can't do this anymore, she said without looking at me. You're too focused on work. We want different things. A week later, she officially broke off our engagement via email. The message was cold, citing irreconcilable differences and my emotional unavailability. She'd already moved most of her things out. The ring was left on the kitchen counter without a note. The depression that followed was unlike anything I'd experienced before. I withdrew from friends, took a leave of absence from work, and spent days replaying every moment of our relationship, looking for signs I'd missed. My parents called daily, concerned, but also confused. They'd thought we were perfect together. They didn't know about Melissa's involvement yet. Rebecca had told them our breakup was mutual and due to growing apart. 2 months after our breakup, the truth emerged through social media. A mutual friend forwarded me an Instagram post. Rebecca and Melissa at a restaurant, holding hands across the table, caption reading, "When you find your person, red heart." The betrayal hit me anew, this time with my sister's role undeniable. My parents were shocked when I showed them. My father wanted to confront Melissa immediately, but I asked him not to. This was between the three of us. 4 months after Rebecca left me, their engagement announcement appeared in my parents' local newspaper. My mother called me crying, caught between her children and not knowing how to handle the family gatherings to come. I told her I needed time and space, and thankfully, she respected that. My father was less diplomatic, telling Melissa she had crossed an unforgivable line. Their relationship became strained as well. During those dark months, I learned who my real friends were. Tyler and Mike checked on me daily, dragging me out of my apartment when all I wanted was to wallow in misery. My boss was unexpectedly understanding, allowing me flexible work arrangements until I could function normally again. And my therapist, Dr. Cohen, became an essential part of my week, helping me process the unique pain of this double betrayal. Just when I thought I was making progress, the gold-embossed wedding invitation arrived in my mailbox 6 months after Rebecca had ended our engagement. The invitation was unnecessarily extravagant, heavy cream cardstock with gold lettering announcing the union of Rebecca Collins and Melissa Mitchell. The date was set for June 15th at the Ocean View Terrace, the exact venue Rebecca and I had booked for our own wedding. This couldn't be coincidence. It felt calculated to maximize my pain. The handwritten note from Melissa stung the most. "Hope you can be happy for us. Family should be there on important days." No acknowledgement of the betrayal, no apology, just the expectation that I would smile through their ceremony as if they hadn't shattered my world. My first instinct was to rip the invitation to shreds. Instead, I placed it on my coffee table and stared at it until my vision blurred. The rage I felt was primal. I wanted to show up drunk and make a scene, to expose them for the cruel, selfish people they were. I fantasized about standing up during that speak now or forever hold your peace moment and telling the assembled guests exactly how their relationship began. When Tyler and Mike came over that evening for our weekly poker night, they found me still staring at the invitation, an untouched glass of whiskey in my hand. "They've got some nerve," Tyler said, examining the elaborate invitation. "Are you okay, man?" "What do you think?" I replied, finally taking a sip of the whiskey. The burn in my throat matched the one in my chest. "You're not actually considering going, are you?" Mike asked, concern evident in his voice. I hadn't decided yet. Part of me wanted to show them I didn't care enough to attend. Another part felt that not showing up would make me look wounded and weak. "If you do go," Tyler said carefully, "you should bring a date. Show them you've moved on." "Right." I laughed bitterly. "Because I've been such a catch these past months, drowning in self-pity." "You're a successful, Good-looking guy who got screwed over, Mike countered. There are plenty of women who would be interested if you put yourself out there. The thought of dating again made my stomach turn. The trust issues Rebecca and Melissa had gifted me weren't something I was eager to bring into a new relationship. Besides, using someone as a prop in my revenge fantasy seemed wrong. During my next therapy session with Dr. Cohen, I brought up the invitation. What do you hope to achieve by attending? She asked in her measured way. Closure, I suggested, not entirely convinced myself. Or maybe I just want them to see they didn't destroy me. Those are very different goals, she noted. One is about your healing. The other is still about them. Her words stuck with me. For months, Rebecca and Melissa had occupied center stage in my thoughts. Every decision, every emotion had been in reaction to their betrayal. Perhaps it was time to reclaim my narrative. Over the next week, I reflected on what attending the wedding might accomplish. I realized that not going meant continuing to hide, while going required a strength I wasn't sure I possessed. Eventually, I decided that facing them would be my final step toward moving forward. I RSVP'd with a simple "will attend" and added +1, even though I had no prospect of a date. Tyler's suggestion about bringing someone lingered, though, not as a ploy to make Rebecca jealous, but because facing this alone seemed unnecessarily harsh on myself. With reluctance, I downloaded several dating apps, expecting nothing but distraction. For 2 weeks, the dating scene proved as disheartening as I'd anticipated. Superficial conversations fizzled out, and the few coffee dates I went on felt forced and awkward. I was about to delete the apps when Samantha's profile appeared. Her bio was refreshingly direct. Neurosurgeon 30. Long hours mean I value genuine connections over games. Dog lover, amateur chef, terrible at small talk but great at real conversations. Not interested in fixing anyone, but happy to meet someone who's already doing their own repairs. Her honesty was compelling, and her photos showed a woman with intelligent eyes and a confident smile. I swiped right without much hope, then was surprised when we matched immediately. Our first messages had an ease I hadn't expected. When I mentioned being busy with work, she understood completely, sharing stories about her 30-hour shifts. We arranged to meet for coffee the following Sunday, her first day off in 10 days. I arrived at the cafe early, nervous in a way I hadn't been since high school. When Samantha walked in, I recognized her immediately. She was shorter than I expected, with dark curly hair pulled back practically and minimal makeup that highlighted her natural beauty. Her handshake was firm, her smile genuine. Full disclosure, she said after we'd ordered, this is my first date since ending a 5-year relationship last year. I might be terrible at this. Her candidness broke the tension, and I found myself admitting it was my first serious dating attempt since Rebecca. Something about Samantha made honesty feel safe. The planned hour-long coffee stretched to 3 as we discovered shared interests in hiking, obscure documentaries, and cooking. She was brilliant but unpretentious, passionate about her work, but not defined by it. I found myself laughing genuinely for the first time in months. As we prepared to leave, I took a risk. This might sound strange, but would you be interested in attending a wedding with me next month? Her eyebrows rose. That's an unusual second date proposal. I explained the situation, my sister, my ex-fiancé, the invitation that felt like a challenge. I expected her to back away slowly from this obvious emotional minefield. Instead, she considered it thoughtfully. So they're terrible people who hurt you deeply, and now they want to showcase their relationship in front of you and everyone you know. That's the short version, yes. And you want to go to prove you're over it? I want to go to actually be over it, I clarified. Hiding from difficult situations hasn't helped me heal. Samantha nodded slowly. I respect that approach. She pulled out her phone and checked her calendar. I'm scheduled for surgery that morning, but I should be done by 4 p.m. If the ceremony's after that, I'm in. I stared at her, surprised. Just like that? You don't think it's weird or inappropriate? Oh, it's definitely weird, she smiled. But life is weird. And sometimes the best way to move forward is to face the past directly. She paused. Plus, I'm curious what kind of people would do something like this. Consider it professional interest in complicated human behavior. As we exchanged numbers, she added, "Just to be clear, I'm not doing this as some revenge scheme. I'm doing it because I think your approach is healthy, and everyone deserves support when facing difficult situations." I left our date feeling lighter than I had in months. Whether or not anything developed between us romantically, I'd found someone who understood what integrity meant. Over the next month, Samantha and I grew surprisingly close. Unlike my relationship with Rebecca, which had been intense and all-consuming from the start, this connection developed naturally, built on mutual respect and genuine interest. Samantha's life as a neurosurgeon was fascinating. She described complex procedures with the same enthusiasm others might discuss their favorite movies. Her schedule was demanding, often requiring middle-of-night surgeries and weekend hospital rounds, but she never complained. "These are people's lives," she'd say simply. "The inconvenience is temporary, but the impact is permanent." During our third date, over dinner at a small Italian restaurant, she shared more about her past relationship. "Mark was a cardiothoracic surgeon at my hospital," she explained, twirling pasta on her fork. "We made sense on paper, same profession, similar ambitions. But he couldn't handle that my career was advancing faster than his. The competition became unhealthy." "What happened?" I asked, recognizing echoes of my own experience with rivalry. "He took a position in California without discussing it with me first, then expected me to abandon my practice and follow him." She shrugged. "When I refused, he accused me of putting my career before our relationship. Classic manipulation tactic." "I'm sorry," I said genuinely. "That must have been difficult." "It was," she admitted, "but necessary. I realized I'd rather be alone than compromise my self-respect." She looked at me directly. "That's why your wedding situation intrigued me. You're choosing to face something painful rather than let it control you from afar. That takes courage." As the wedding approached, we spent increasingly more time together. We hiked the Blue Hills one weekend, Samantha easily keeping pace despite her petite frame. Another evening, she taught me to make authentic paella in my kitchen, laughing when I burned the rice. We watched terrible sci-fi movies and debated whether time travel would violate causality principles. With each meeting, I found myself sharing more about my relationship with Rebecca and Melissa. Samantha listened without judgment, occasionally offering insights that helped me see the situation more clearly. "Your sister's pattern of competition isn't about you," she observed one evening as we walked along the Charles River. "It sounds like deep insecurity. People who are comfortable with themselves don't need to steal from others to feel whole." Her perspective helped me view my sister with more compassion, though it didn't excuse her actions. 2 weeks before the wedding, Samantha accompanied me shopping for a new suit. "If we're doing this, we're doing it properly," she insisted, steering me toward higher-end options than I'd normally consider. In the fitting room, as I tried on a charcoal gray Tom Ford that cost more than my monthly rent, Samantha assessed me with a clinical eye. "That's the one," she declared. "It fits you perfectly." Catching my expression at the price tag, she added, "Consider it an investment in your future. This suit says, I'm successful and confident, without trying too hard." When it was her turn to shop, she selected a simple but elegant emerald green dress that complemented her olive complexion perfectly. The color reminded me of spring renewal, appropriate for what I hoped would be a new beginning. That evening, over takeout in my apartment, we discussed boundaries for the wedding day. "I'm not expecting you to pretend we're madly in love," I assured her. "Just being there is enough." Samantha considered this as she picked up another piece of sushi. "I think we should be authentic," she said finally. "We enjoy each other's company. That's real. We don't need to manufacture anything beyond that." I nodded, relieved. "Thank you for all of this." She smiled. "Don't thank me yet. We haven't survived the wedding." The following week, my mother called, her voice tight with anxiety. "Jason, are you really coming to the wedding?" "Yes, Mom. With a date." Her surprise was audible. "Oh, that's wonderful, honey. I'm glad you're moving forward." After an awkward pause, she continued, Your father and I are in a difficult position. We want to support both our children, but what Melissa did?" She sighed heavily. "We've told her how disappointed we are, but she's still our daughter." "I understand, Mom," I said, and I did. They were caught between their children, forced to attend a wedding they had profound misgivings about. "The rehearsal dinner is Friday," she added cautiously. "Melissa asked if you'd come." The request felt like another power play. "I'll pass on that one," I replied. "The wedding itself is enough." "I understand," she said, sounding relieved. "Just, please try to keep the peace on the day. For us." After we hung up, I sat staring at my phone, conflicted. My parents didn't deserve to have their family torn apart, but I also wouldn't pretend everything was fine. I texted Samantha about the conversation. Her reply was immediate. "You're not responsible for protecting everyone's feelings. Your only obligation is to behave with dignity. That doesn't mean playing happy families." Her words reinforced what I'd been learning in therapy. Setting boundaries wasn't selfish. It was necessary for healthy relationships. The night before the wedding, anxiety kept me awake. I paced my apartment, imagining worst-case scenarios and rehearsing responses to potential provocations. Around midnight, my phone pinged with a text from Samantha. "Remember, the best revenge is living well. Try to sleep. Tomorrow is just one day in a much longer, better story." Her message centered me. Whatever happened tomorrow, it was just one day. My life would continue afterward, hopefully with Samantha in it. That thought finally allowed me to sleep. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear, as if the universe was mocking my inner turmoil with perfect weather. I woke early after a restless night, my stomach tight with anxiety. The ceremony wasn't until 5 p.m., but time seemed to crawl as I tried to distract myself with work emails and mindless television. At 3:30, I began getting ready, taking unusual care with every detail. The new charcoal suit fit perfectly, making me look more confident than I felt. I chose a subtle blue tie that Samantha had suggested would bring out my eyes and polished my best shoes until I could see my reflection. Samantha texted that her surgery had finished early and she was on her way to my apartment. When she arrived at 4:15, her transformation from doctor to wedding guest took my breath away. Her emerald dress was sophisticated and flattering without being flashy. She'd styled her usually practical hair into soft waves and added minimal makeup that enhanced her natural beauty. "You clean up well, Mitchell," she smiled, straightening my tie. "Ready for this?" "As I'll ever be," I admitted. "You look incredible, by the way." "Professional skill," she winked. "Steady hands are useful for both brain surgery and eyeliner." The drive to Ocean View Terrace was quiet, both of us lost in thought. The venue was as beautiful as I remembered from when Rebecca and I had toured it, perched on a cliff overlooking the Atlantic, with panoramic windows and elegant stonework. Seeing it now sent a pang through my chest, a ghost of what might have been. "Remember," Samantha said as we pulled into the parking lot, "we're here for your closure, not their approval. If it gets too much, we leave. No questions asked." I nodded, grateful for her understanding. "Thank you for doing this." "Partners in crime." She squeezed my hand briefly before we exited the car. The usher recognized me immediately, his eyes widening slightly. "Jason."
"Good to see you."
You're seated with family on the bride's side, obviously." "Both brides are family," I replied neutrally, feeling Samantha's supportive presence beside me. As we entered the ceremony space, the whispers began. Friends and relatives turned to stare, conversations pausing mid-sentence. I heard my name repeated in hushed tones as we made our way to our seats. My parents were already there, looking uncomfortable in their formal wear. My mother's face lit up with relief when she saw us. "Jason," she stood to embrace me, then turned to Samantha with undisguised curiosity. "Mom, Dad, this is Samantha Carter," I introduced. "Samantha, my parents, Linda and Robert Mitchell." "It's lovely to meet you," Samantha said warmly, shaking their hands. "Jason speaks very highly of you both." "We didn't know Jason was bringing anyone," my father said, studying Samantha with interest. "It's relatively new," I explained, conscious of nearby relatives straining to listen. "Samantha, what do you do?" my mother asked, her social autopilot kicking in. "I'm a neurosurgeon at Massachusetts General," Samantha replied simply. My mother's eyebrows rose, clearly impressed.
"Oh,
My goodness, that must be fascinating work." "It has its moments," Samantha smiled. "Though I imagine raising Jason and Melissa had its own challenges." The mention of both children together created an awkward pause. My father cleared his throat and changed the subject, asking about the traffic on our drive. The small talk continued until music signaled the ceremony was about to begin. I tensed as the bridal procession started. Rebecca entered first, wearing a designer gown that we had once discussed as being overpriced and pretentious. She looked beautiful but unfamiliar, like a stranger wearing the face of someone I used to know. Our eyes met briefly as she passed our row, her confident expression faltering for just a moment. Melissa followed minutes later, wearing a white pantsuit that contrasted deliberately with Rebecca's traditional gown. She didn't look at our family's row at all, her gaze fixed forward as if we didn't exist. Throughout the ceremony, I felt oddly detached, as if watching a movie about strangers. The vows they exchanged seemed performative, with Rebecca promising loyalty, without a trace of irony. Beside me, Samantha remained a steady presence, occasionally squeezing my hand when certain phrases hit too close to home. When the officiant pronounced them married, the audience applauded. I moved my hands mechanically, going through the motions. My mother wiped away tears that I suspected were not entirely happy ones. The cocktail hour that followed was held on the terrace overlooking the ocean. Samantha and I moved through the space with deliberate confidence, her hand resting lightly on my arm. We made an impressive pair, the successful software engineer and the brilliant neurosurgeon, and I noticed people watching us with interest. "Your cousin at 2 o'clock has been staring for 5 straight minutes," Samantha murmured, accepting a champagne flute from a passing server. "That's Jennifer, family gossip coordinator," I explained. "By tomorrow, everyone will know your entire life story, with embellishments." "Should we give her something worth talking about?" Samantha's eyes sparkled mischievously. "Let's save our ammunition," I suggested. "The reception hasn't even started yet." My parents joined us, acting as buffers against the more curious relatives. My father seemed particularly taken with Samantha, asking detailed questions about her work that she answered with patience and clarity. "You've found yourself quite a remarkable woman," he said to me when Samantha was momentarily distracted by my mother's questions. "She's definitely one of a kind," I agreed, watching her animate a story with graceful hand gestures. The reception began with the announcement of the newlyweds' entrance. Rebecca and Melissa entered hand in hand to enthusiastic applause, beaming as if they were the first couple to ever fall in love. They moved to the dance floor for their first dance to a song that Rebecca had once told me was too cliché for weddings. As they swayed together, I felt Samantha's eyes on me. "You okay?" she asked quietly. Surprisingly, yes, I realized. It all feels distant somehow. The formal dances were followed by dinner, where we were seated at a table with my parents and some distant relatives who didn't know the full story. The conversation remained superficial but pleasant, with most questions directed at Samantha, who handled the attention with grace. It was during the entree course that I noticed Rebecca's maid of honor, her cousin Tiffany, approaching our table. She'd never liked me, considering me not good enough for Rebecca despite knowing nothing about me. "Jason," she greeted coldly before turning to Samantha with a saccharine smile. "And you must be his rebound. Brave of you to come to his ex's wedding." Before I could respond, Samantha extended her hand. "Dr. Samantha Carter. And you are?" The simple introduction, emphasizing her title, was delivered with such polite authority that Tiffany faltered. "Tiffany Reynolds, Rebecca's cousin," she recovered. "I'm surprised Jason found someone so quickly willing to enter this complicated situation." "Some people value loyalty and integrity," Samantha replied smoothly. "I admire Jason's courage in attending today. It shows remarkable character." Tiffany's smile tightened. "Well, Rebecca and Melissa are very happy." Sometimes people find their true love through unexpected circumstances. Indeed, Samantha agreed pleasantly. Though in my professional experience, relationships built on betrayal rarely thrive long-term. The foundation is inherently unstable. She took a sip of her wine. But I wish them all the best in beating those odds. Tiffany retreated, clearly outmatched. My father chuckled into his napkin while my mother looked both horrified and impressed. You didn't have to do that, I told Samantha quietly. I know, she replied, returning to her meal. But sometimes scientific observations should be shared. As the reception continued, I noticed Melissa drinking heavily, her gestures becoming more exaggerated with each glass of champagne. She kept glancing at our table, her expression growing increasingly hostile. Rebecca seemed to be trying to distract her, but Melissa's focus remained fixed in our direction. Your sister's working herself up to something, Samantha observed as we shared a dance. She's looked over here 12 times in the last song. Maybe we should leave soon, I suggested, not wanting a confrontation. Let's see how it plays out, Samantha replied. Remember, we're not doing anything wrong by being here. When we returned to our table, Melissa was making her way toward us, champagne glass in hand. Her walk was slightly unsteady, her expression determined. Rebecca followed a few steps behind, looking concerned. Jason. Melissa's voice was too loud as she reached our table. So glad you could make it to celebrate our special day. Congratulations, I replied neutrally. And who's this? She turned to Samantha, her smile not reaching her eyes. Samantha Carter, I introduced. Samantha, my sister Melissa. Pleasure, Samantha said simply. Melissa looked Samantha up and down appraisingly. Quite a step up from retail planning, isn't she, Jason? Rebecca told me you always had a thing for successful women. Melissa, Rebecca murmured warningly, finally catching up.
What?
I'm just getting to know my brother's new girlfriend. Melissa's false sweetness couldn't disguise the venom beneath. After all, we're family. The word family in her mouth made my jaw clench, but I maintained my composure. It's been a lovely ceremony, I said flatly. You both look happy. We are, Melissa replied, putting her arm around Rebecca possessively. Sometimes things work out exactly as they should. Rebecca at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. We should get back to our other guests, she suggested, tugging gently at Melissa's arm. In a minute, Melissa pulled away, her attention still fixed on us. I haven't properly thanked Jason for coming yet. I could sense the situation deteriorating. My parents were watching anxiously, my father half rising from his seat as if preparing to intervene. Perhaps this conversation would be better continued privately, Samantha suggested calmly. Or perhaps, Melissa's eyes narrowed, some conversations should happen publicly. Excuse me. Before anyone could stop her, she was striding toward the DJ's table, whispering something to him. He handed her the microphone with a confused expression. The feedback squealed as Melissa tapped the mic, drawing everyone's attention. Sorry to interrupt the celebration, she announced, her words slightly slurred. But I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge some special guests. My stomach dropped as her gaze fixed directly on our table. The reception fell silent as Melissa swayed slightly at the center of the room, microphone in hand. Rebecca stood frozen nearby, her expression cycling rapidly between confusion and alarm. My parents exchanged worried glances while I felt Samantha's hand slip into mine under the table. I want to thank everyone for coming today, Melissa began, her voice artificially bright. Especially my family, who have been supportive in their own way. Her gaze locked onto me, including my brother Jason, who has so graciously joined us. The room's attention shifted to our table, dozens of curious eyes examining me. I kept my expression neutral, though my heart hammered against my ribs. It's not every day, Melissa continued, her smile sharpening, that someone attends the wedding of their ex-fiancé to their sister. That takes a special kind of something. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Those who hadn't known the full story looked shocked, while others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Melissa, Rebecca approached her, reaching for the microphone. Let's cut the cake now. Melissa sidestepped her. In a minute, babe. I'm making a toast. She raised her champagne glass with her free hand. To new beginnings and upgrades. The word hung in the air, loaded with meaning. My jaw tightened as I realized where this was heading. After all, Melissa's voice dropped to a stage whisper that the microphone still carried perfectly. I want to thank my brother for being here. After all, she's just the one he settled for first. Laughter erupted from pockets of the room. Rebecca's friends, some distant relatives who didn't know better. Rebecca herself didn't laugh, but she didn't stop Melissa either, standing by with a pained smile that might have been mistaken for embarrassment but looked more like guilt. The humiliation burned through me like acid. I'd come expecting awkwardness, not public mockery. For a moment, I considered walking out, sparing myself further degradation. My parents looked mortified, my mother covering her face, while my father half rose from his chair again. Samantha's hand tightened around mine, and I felt her shift beside me. Before I could process what was happening, she was standing, her posture perfectly straight, her expression composed. She caught the eye of a nearby waiter and beckoned. When he approached, she whispered something that made him nod and hurry away. "What are you doing?" I whispered, but she just squeezed my shoulder reassuringly. Melissa was still talking, her words growing increasingly inappropriate as she detailed how she and Rebecca had connected while planning what would have been my wedding. The crowd's laughter had died down, discomfort replacing amusement as the speech veered into cruelty. The waiter returned, handing Samantha a microphone of her own. She took it, but didn't immediately speak, waiting until Melissa paused to take another swig of champagne. "Excuse me." Samantha's voice cut through the awkward silence, clear and professional. All heads turned toward her as she stepped away from our table. "I believe I should introduce myself, since I seem to be part of this conversation." Melissa blinked, clearly not expecting interruption. Rebecca looked even more alarmed now, whispering something urgent to a groomsman who shook his head helplessly. "I'm Dr. Samantha Carter," she continued, walking slowly toward the center of the room. "And while I appreciate being included in your special day, I think there's been a misunderstanding." She stopped a few feet from Melissa, the contrast between them striking, Samantha poised and elegant, Melissa increasingly disheveled. "You see," Samantha smiled pleasantly, "I'm not here as anyone's consolation prize. Actually, I'm her upgrade." Gasps and a few shocked laughs rippled through the audience. Melissa's face flushed dark red. "How dare you?" she sputtered. "This is my wedding." "Yes, it is," Samantha agreed calmly. "Which makes your behavior all the more puzzling. Most brides spend their reception celebrating their partner, not mocking their guests." She turned to address the room at large. "I've only known Jason for a short time, but I've learned he's intelligent, kind, and honest. Qualities that apparently run in short supply in some branches of the family tree." My father let out a surprised bark of laughter that he quickly disguised as a cough. Melissa looked murderous, while Rebecca had gone pale. "You don't know anything about us," Melissa hissed. "That's where you're wrong," Samantha replied, reaching into her clutch. She withdrew her phone, tapped the screen a few times, then held it up. "Rebecca, would you like to explain these messages you sent Jason 3 weeks ago, or should I read them aloud?" The room went completely silent. Rebecca's eyes widened in horror. "What messages?" Melissa demanded, looking between Rebecca and the phone. "Just a series of texts expressing doubts about your upcoming marriage," Samantha explained conversationally, along with some rather nostalgic reflections on her relationship with Jason. Nothing too explicit, but certainly not something a committed bride-to-be typically sends to her ex. She turned the phone screen toward the closest guests, who leaned forward to see. Their expressions of shock confirmed the messages were exactly as described. "She's lying." Rebecca finally found her voice, though it trembled. "Those are fake. Timestamp and verified phone number suggest otherwise," Samantha replied. "Technology makes deception so much harder these days." Melissa grabbed the phone, scrolling through messages with increasing agitation. Her face contorted as she read, the microphone in her other hand catching her ragged breathing. Is this true? She demanded, turning to Rebecca. Were you texting him behind my back? Rebecca's silence was damning. The wedding guests shifted uncomfortably, some averting their eyes from the unfolding drama, others watching with undisguised fascination. I was confused, Rebecca finally stammered. It didn't mean anything. I was just hedging your bets? Samantha suggested. Keeping options open? That seems to be a pattern. Melissa's expression crumpled, humiliation replacing her previous arrogance. You told me you were completely over him, she said to Rebecca, the microphone broadcasting her pain to the entire room. You said I was your first choice. My father stood then, his authoritative presence drawing attention. I think that's enough public discussion, he announced firmly. This is a family matter. He approached Melissa and gently took the microphone from her trembling hand, then did the same with Samantha. Turning to the DJ, he said, some music would be appropriate now. As the opening notes of an upbeat song filled the awkward silence, Melissa turned on Rebecca. How could you, she demanded, loud enough for nearby tables to hear despite the music. After everything we did to be together? Rebecca tried to take her hands, but Melissa yanked away, storming toward the exit. Rebecca followed, calling her name. The wedding guests pretended to focus on their desserts or the dance floor, though everyone was stealing glances at the unfolding catastrophe. My mother appeared at my side, her face ashen. We should go, she said quietly. This has gotten out of hand. I nodded, still processing what had just happened. Samantha returned to our table, slipping her phone back into her clutch as if she hadn't just detonated a bomb in the middle of my sister's wedding. I'm sorry if I overstepped, she said, though her expression suggested she wasn't sorry at all. But I don't tolerate bullies. Those messages, I began, confused. Rebecca really contacted me? Remember those weird block numbers you were getting? Samantha asked as we gathered our things. When you showed me your phone last week, I noticed they matched Rebecca's contact info, just without the caller ID. I took the liberty of recovering the texts through your provider's message archive. She'd not only defended me, but had done investigative work I hadn't even considered. You didn't have to do that, I said finally. No, she agreed. But I wanted to. No one deserves to be humiliated at an event they were gracious enough to attend. My father returned, looking weary. They're arguing in the bridal suite, he reported. The best man is trying to salvage the reception, but he shook his head. This isn't how I imagined my daughter's wedding day. I'm sorry, Dad, I said, feeling genuine regret for his disappointment. Don't be, he clapped my shoulder. You conducted yourself with dignity. More than I can say for Melissa. He turned to Samantha with newfound respect. That was quite a display of loyalty, Dr. Carter. Jason would have done the same for me, she replied simply. As we made our way toward the exit, guests stared openly, some with sympathy, others with barely concealed excitement at the scandal. Rebecca's mother blocked our path briefly, her face tight with anger. You've ruined everything, she accused. I believe your daughter and my sister managed that without help, I replied evenly. Enjoy the rest of the reception, Mrs. Collins. Outside, the evening air was cool and soothing after the tension of the ballroom. Samantha and I walked silently to the car, processing the evening's dramatic turn. It was only when we were driving away, the venue shrinking in the rearview mirror, that I finally exhaled fully. So, Samantha broke the silence, not exactly the quiet, dignified appearance we planned. The understatement was so absurd that I laughed, the sound surprising both of us. No, not exactly. Do you regret coming? She asked, watching me carefully. I considered the question honestly. Strangely, no. For the first time since they betrayed me, I feel free. Samantha smiled, the tension in her shoulders easing. Good. Though I may have destroyed any chance of holiday dinner invitations from your sister. Something tells me that won't be a significant loss, I replied, feeling lighter than I had in months as we drove away from the wreckage of what was supposed to be the perfect wedding. The drive home from the wedding venue was surprisingly peaceful. After the chaos we'd left behind, The quiet car felt like a sanctuary. Neither of us spoke much until I pulled into a 24-hour diner off the highway. "I'm not ready to go home yet," I explained as we parked. "Too much adrenaline." "Late-night coffee sounds perfect," Samantha agreed, looking remarkably composed for someone who had just orchestrated a wedding reception meltdown. Inside, the fluorescent lighting and vinyl booths felt reassuringly normal. We ordered coffee and pie, the only customers besides a truck driver dozing in a corner booth. When our waitress retreated, Samantha finally broke into a wide grin. "Did you see Rebecca's face when I mentioned the texts?" she asked, eyes sparkling with mischief. "I thought she might faint right there on the dance floor." The memory triggered my own laughter. Almost as good as Melissa realizing her perfect relationship wasn't so perfect after all. "The irony is exquisite." Samantha sipped her coffee. "They betrayed you, only to end up unable to trust each other. Poetic justice at its finest." We spent the next hour dissecting the evening, each recollection making us laugh harder. The tension that had built up over weeks dissolved in that dingy diner as we replayed the dramatic scene from various angles. By the time we finished our second slice of pie, I felt lighter than I had in months. "Thank you," I said sincerely as we prepared to leave. Not just for the dramatic rescue, but for making this whole experience, I don't know, healing somehow. "Sometimes closure requires a bit of chaos," she replied, her smile softening. Besides, it was the most entertaining first month of dating I've ever experienced. The normalcy of recalling this dating sent a pleasant warmth through me. Whatever had started between us, tonight had transformed it into something significant. When I dropped Samantha at her apartment, she kissed me briefly but meaningfully. "Get some rest," she advised. "Tomorrow will bring its own drama." Her prediction proved accurate. I woke to 37 text messages, 12 missed calls, and numerous social media notifications. My phone buzzed continuously as I scrolled through the barrage of communications. "Tyler, dude, what happened? Your cousin Jennifer called my girlfriend saying your date exposed some affair at the wedding? Call me. Mike. Tell me the neurosurgeon story is true. Also, your sister's wedding is trending locally on Twitter. Not kidding. Dad, your mother and I are heading home early. Reception ended shortly after you left. We'll call tomorrow. Proud of how you handled yourself, son." The most surprising message came from my Aunt Susan, my father's sister who had always favored Melissa. "Jason, I owe you an apology. I didn't know the full story until last night. What Melissa and Rebecca did was unforgivable. You deserved better. Let's have lunch soon." I was reading through the messages when my phone rang. Samantha calling. "Have you checked your phone yet?" she asked without preamble. "Currently wading through the aftermath," I replied. "You." My roommate said I'm trending on 3 different wedding shaming groups as badass neurosurgeon exposes cheating bride. Apparently, someone filmed the whole confrontation. My stomach dropped. "They what?" "Don't worry," she sounded unconcerned. "They only got the part where I mentioned the texts, not any actual content. Though your sister's reaction is quite expressive." Before I could respond, my doorbell rang insistently. Through the peephole, I saw Melissa, alone and looking disheveled in yesterday's clothes. "My sister's here," I told Samantha, stunned. "I'll call you back." "Want me to come over?" she offered immediately. "Let me handle this first," I decided. "I'll update you later." When I opened the door, Melissa pushed past me without invitation, her eyes red-rimmed and mascara smudged down her cheeks. "Congratulations," she spat, pacing my living room. "You got your revenge. Are you happy now?" "I didn't plan any of that," I replied calmly, closing the door. "You're the one who grabbed a microphone to humiliate me publicly. You brought her to deliberately ruin my wedding," Melissa accused, pointing a shaking finger at me. "I brought a date to an event I was invited to," I corrected. "You're the one who decided to make it a spectacle." "Rebecca left," she said suddenly, her voice breaking. "She went to her parents' house last night. She's not answering my calls." Despite everything, a twinge of sympathy surfaced. Melissa looked truly devastated. much as I had been 6 months earlier. I'm sorry it ended this way, I said, meaning it. But what did you expect, Melissa? You built a relationship on betrayal. Did you really think trust would magically appear afterward? She collapsed onto my couch, burying her face in her hands. I love her, she sobbed. I've always loved her from the moment you introduced us. It wasn't supposed to be like this. The confession hung in the air between us. I sat in the armchair across from her, maintaining distance while processing her words. Were you in love with her the whole time we were together? I asked quietly. Melissa nodded miserably. I tried to fight it. I did. But then she started confiding in me about your relationship problems, and we got closer, and… She trailed off. That doesn't justify what you did, I said firmly. You both betrayed me in the worst possible way. If you wanted Rebecca, you should have been honest before it turned into an affair. I know, she whispered, looking up with tear-stained cheeks. I was selfish and horrible. I've always been horrible to you, Jason. Ever since we were kids, I've been jealous of you. Jealous? I repeated, genuinely surprised. Of what? Everything, she exclaimed. You were always the smart one, the responsible one, the one Dad bragged about to his friends. I was just there, the extra kid. That's not true, I argued, though her words made pieces of our childhood click into place. Mom and Dad were always proud of you too. Not the same way, she insisted. When you brought Rebecca home, and she was so perfect, successful, beautiful, everything I wasn't, I wanted something that was better than what you had. Just once. The pathetic admission deflated my anger somewhat. Not enough to forgive her, but enough to see her as a deeply flawed person rather than a malicious villain. Melissa, I said carefully, what you and Rebecca did caused me immense pain. I'm not sure I can ever forgive either of you completely. But I don't want to hate you forever either. She looked up hopefully. Does that mean you'll help me fix things with Rebecca? The audacity of her request almost made me laugh. Absolutely not. That's your mess to handle. What I'm saying is I'm setting boundaries. We're not going to be close, but we don't have to be enemies. Her face fell, but she nodded slowly. I understand. For what it's worth, I am sorry. Not just because it blew up in my face, but because I hurt you. As she left my apartment an hour later, I felt strangely peaceful. Our conversation hadn't magically repaired our relationship, but it had provided context I'd been missing. Her jealousy didn't excuse her actions, but it made them comprehensible. Over the following weeks, the wedding disaster rippled through our extended family and social circles. Rebecca and Melissa's honeymoon was canceled amid rumors of relationship counseling. My parents called frequently, carefully navigating their divided loyalties while expressing relief that I seemed to be moving forward. Social media briefly buzzed with fragmented videos from the reception, though most were taken down quickly at the bride's family's request. Still, the damage was done. Their perfect wedding would forever be remembered for its dramatic implosion. Meanwhile, my relationship with Samantha flourished away from the drama. We continued dating, our connection deepening, without the wedding as a focal point. She introduced me to her colleagues at a hospital fundraiser, where I was amused to overhear her being asked about that wedding incident by curious coworkers. I merely facilitated an overdue conversation, she told them with professional discretion. Sometimes people need help communicating effectively. 4 months after the wedding, I invited Samantha to meet my extended family at my grandmother's 80th birthday celebration. Melissa declined to attend, still working through her issues with Rebecca, who had moved back in after weeks of separation. My aunts and uncles embraced Samantha warmly, impressed by both her career and the loyalty she'd shown me. My grandmother, never one to mince words, took Samantha's hands and declared, "This one's a keeper, Jason. Don't mess it up." "I don't intend to," I replied, catching Samantha's eye across the room. That evening, as we drove home, Samantha broached a subject we'd been circling for weeks. "My lease is up next month," she mentioned casually. "I've been thinking about looking for a new place." Oh, I kept my eyes on the road, heart accelerating. "Something closer to the hospital, maybe," she continued. though your neighborhood has a lot to recommend it. I took the opening. My place has an extra bedroom you've been using as a closet anyway, I pointed out. And it's only 15 minutes from Mass General. She smiled. Are you asking me to move in with you, Jason Mitchell? I believe I am, Dr. Carter. I confirmed, reaching for her hand. If you think it's not too soon. After surviving a wedding apocalypse together, I think we've compressed at least a year of dating drama into a few months, she laughed. Besides, your coffee maker is better than mine. 2 weeks later, Samantha's books began appearing on my shelves, her surgical journals on my coffee table, her specialized shampoo in my shower. The transition was remarkably smooth, as if the space had been waiting for her all along. We established routines that accommodated her unpredictable hospital schedule and my software development deadlines. We cooked together when possible, left notes when not. We argued about dishwasher loading techniques and Netflix choices, but never went to bed angry. 6 months after the wedding, an unexpected email arrived from Rebecca. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I need to say this. I'm sorry. What Melissa and I did was unforgivable. We're still together and working through our issues, but I'll always regret how we hurt you. You deserved better. I hope you found happiness. I showed the message to Samantha, who read it thoughtfully. Are you going to respond? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to ignore it, but another part feels like that would just keep me tethered to the past. Whatever you decide, she said, make sure it's for your peace, not theirs. After consideration, I sent a brief reply. Thank you for the apology. I wish you both well. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was closure, the final thread being cut. That evening, as Samantha and I prepared dinner in our now shared kitchen, I watched her methodically chopping vegetables with surgical precision and felt a surge of gratitude. The betrayal that had once seemed like the end of my world had ultimately led me here, to a relationship built on respect and genuine connection. What? She asked, noticing my gaze. Just thinking about unexpected paths, I replied, wrapping my arms around her from behind. And how sometimes the worst moments lead to the best ones. She turned in my embrace, knife still in hand. Very philosophical for someone who's supposed to be grating cheese. I laughed, kissing her forehead before returning to my assigned task. In my bedroom drawer, hidden beneath winter sweaters, was a small velvet box I'd purchased the week before, not for immediate use, but for when the moment felt right. For the first time since Rebecca, I was thinking about forever again, but with a wiser heart and a clearer vision of what love should truly be. 6 months later, Samantha and I stood in our newly purchased townhouse, surrounded by moving boxes and the pleasant chaos of combining 2 lives into one space. The decision to buy a home together had come naturally after a year of dating, a commitment that felt both significant and utterly right. I still can't believe we got this place, Samantha marveled, running her hand along the granite kitchen countertop. That bidding war was more stressful than brain surgery. Your negotiation skills saved us, I reminded her, unpacking a box of books. That speech about interest rates and market projections was masterful. She laughed, the sound echoing in our still empty living room. I researched for that presentation like it was a medical conference. Worth every minute, though. As we settled into our new home, news came through family channels about Melissa and Rebecca. Their marriage had survived, though not without significant changes. They'd moved to Chicago for a fresh start, away from the whispers and sideways glances that had followed them since the wedding disaster. According to my mother, they were in couples therapy and working through their trust issues. Are you surprised they stayed together? Samantha asked when I shared this update. Not entirely, I admitted. They both have strong personalities and plenty of pride. Splitting would mean admitting they made a catastrophic mistake. Or maybe they genuinely love each other despite their terrible choices, Samantha suggested, always willing to see multiple perspectives. People can grow, even from toxic beginnings. Her balanced view was one of the qualities I most appreciated about her. While I still couldn't think about Melissa and Rebecca without a twinge of hurt, the sharp pain had faded to a dull ache that surfaced only occasionally. My own personal growth had been significant over the past year. Weekly therapy sessions had helped me understand my contribution to the family dynamics that had shaped Melissa's competitive nature and my own tendencies toward emotional withholding when stressed. I couldn't excuse what they'd done, but I could recognize the complex web of patterns that had created fertile ground for betrayal. Dr. Cohen says I've made excellent progress, I told Samantha after a particularly insightful session. She thinks I'm ready to reduce to monthly appointments. That's wonderful, Samantha replied sincerely. Though I'll miss our Thursday ice cream tradition after your sessions. Who says we have to stop that part? I grinned. Some traditions are worth keeping. In November, an unexpected email arrived from Melissa. I'm coming to Boston next week for a marketing conference. Would you be willing to meet for coffee?
Just me.
I understand if you say no. I discussed it with Samantha, who supported whatever decision I made. Just remember your boundaries, she advised. You don't owe her forgiveness or comfort. After careful consideration, I agreed to a brief meeting at a neutral cafe downtown. When Melissa arrived, I was struck by how different she looked, more subdued, with less makeup and simpler clothes than her former flashy style. Thank you for meeting me, she said, settling across from me with her latte. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't either, I admitted honestly. She nodded, accepting this. Rebecca and I are doing better, she offered. The therapist says we're making progress. I'm glad, I said, and was surprised to find I meant it. The thought of their relationship no longer triggered jealousy or rage, just a distant acknowledgement that their path was separate from mine. I wanted to tell you in person that I'm truly sorry, Melissa continued, her voice steady but vulnerable. Not just for what happened, but for all of it, the competition, the jealousy, the terrible way I treated you our whole lives. I've been doing a lot of work on myself, trying to understand why I always needed to take what was yours. Her candor caught me off guard. This was not the defensive sister I'd known all my life. I appreciate that, I said carefully. It couldn't have been easy to come here and say these things. It's not, she confirmed with a small smile. But it's necessary. I don't expect us to ever be close, Jason. I know I destroyed that possibility, but I hope someday we can be, I don't know, peaceful around each other. For Mom and Dad's sake, if nothing else. We talked for nearly an hour, the conversation more honest than any we'd had as adults. I learned about her therapy insights, her struggles with self-worth, and her genuine efforts to build a healthier relationship with Rebecca. In turn, I shared limited details about my life with Samantha and my own therapeutic journey. When we parted, we didn't hug, but our handshake lingered a moment longer than necessary. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was a step towards something less broken than before. That evening, I recounted the meeting to Samantha as we prepared for a dinner party with friends. It was strangely healing, I concluded. Not because I've forgiven everything, but because I could see her as a flawed human being rather than the villain in my story. That's huge progress, Samantha noted, arranging appetizers on a serving platter. Reducing people from monsters to humans with issues is harder than it sounds. The holiday season brought another milestone, hosting both our families for a combined Thanksgiving dinner. My parents had met Samantha several times and developed a genuine friendship that made the blended celebration feel natural. Melissa and Rebecca remained in Chicago, sending a polite card that neither of us felt compelled to display but didn't immediately discard either. During the bustling dinner preparation, my father pulled me aside in the hallway. I want you to know how proud I am of you, son, he said quietly. Not just for your professional success, but for how you've handled everything this past year. You've shown remarkable strength and maturity. Thanks, Dad, I replied, touched by his rare emotional openness. I had good examples. And excellent support, he added, glancing toward the kitchen where Samantha was laughing with my mother. She's extraordinary, Jason. Your mother and I couldn't be happier about your relationship. I feel the same way, I confirmed, the weight of the ring box in my pocket suddenly more noticeable. I'd been carrying it for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment. That moment came after dinner, when our families had departed and we were cleaning up the kitchen together. Samantha was telling me about a patient's remarkable recovery while loading the dishwasher, her hands moving efficiently, as always. The normalcy of the scene, her voice filling our home with stories, the comfortable rhythm we'd established, suddenly crystallized everything I felt for her. I reached into my pocket, withdrew the box, and knelt beside the dishwasher. Samantha turned, a soapy plate in her hand, and froze. I had planned something elaborate, I admitted, but I just realized I don't want to wait for the perfect backdrop or orchestrated moment. This, you making our house a home, sharing your day with me, building this life together, this is what matters. Jason, she whispered, setting down the plate carefully. I love you, Samantha. Not because you rescued me from a terrible situation, though you did. Not because you're brilliant and beautiful, though you are. I love you because with you, I'm the best version of myself. Because you challenge me, support me, and make me laugh even on the hardest days. I opened the box, revealing the emerald ring I'd chosen to match her eyes. Will you marry me? Yes, she answered without hesitation, dropping to her knees to meet me at eye level. 1,000 times yes. As I slid the ring onto her finger, she laughed through happy tears. You realize this means we'll have our own wedding to plan now. I'm thinking small, I said immediately. Very small. Possibly just us on a beach somewhere. Perfect, she agreed, kissing me. Though we should probably invite our families. Reluctantly agreed. I smiled against her lips. But absolutely no microphones allowed. In the weeks that followed, as we shared our engagement news and began loose planning for a summer ceremony, I often reflected on the strange journey that had led me here. The betrayal that had once felt like the end of my world had ultimately been the beginning of something far better, a relationship built on mutual respect, genuine partnership, and hard-earned wisdom about what love should truly be. Sometimes the people who hurt you the most accidentally lead you to where you're meant to be. The betrayal that once broke me ultimately rebuilt me into someone stronger, wiser, and finally ready for real love. With Samantha by my side, I'm grateful for the difficult path that led me here. Have you ever experienced a painful situation that unexpectedly led to something better in your life? Share your story in the comments below. And if this journey of betrayal and redemption resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that sometimes our worst moments can lead to our greatest happiness. Thank you for joining me for this deeply personal story. Remember, it's not about avoiding pain, but about how we grow through it.